Chicago is experiencing something we haven't seen in years. The Bears are having one of their most phenomenal seasons in recent memory. Caleb Williams is developing into the franchise quarterback we've been waiting for, and Ben Johnson's offensive system is finally clicking. But right in the middle of all this success, there's a situation brewing that could completely reshape our receiving corps. A decision that nobody saw coming 6 months ago. A move that involves one of our most talented players, and when you hear what's actually being discussed behind the scenes, you're going to understand why this offseason could look dramatically different than anyone expected. Welcome to Bears News Fan Report, your home for every breaking update, every insider detail, and every critical analysis about our Chicago Bears. I'm here to bring you the real story, the information that matters, and today, I'm bringing you something that's going to change how you view our offensive future. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now because you cannot miss what I'm about to reveal. Turn on those notifications because this affects everything we're building in Chicago. Let me paint the picture for you. We're in the middle of a season that has exceeded expectations. The offense is producing, the defense is holding up, we're competitive in every game, and at the center of our receiving corps is a player who is supposed to be our number one weapon, our go-to guy, the veteran presence that would help Caleb Williams develop. But something has shifted. Something has changed in how this coaching staff views the hierarchy of our pass catchers. And that shift could lead to a decision that shakes up everything we thought we knew about this roster. I'm talking about a situation where production hasn't matched expectations, where a player who was brought in to be the alpha has been surpassed by someone younger, someone who's emerged as the true number one option in this offense. And when that happens, when the dynamics change so dramatically, organizations have to make tough choices. They have to evaluate whether the current structure is the best path forward, or whether it's time to make a move that opens up new possibilities. Stay with me, because when I tell you exactly who we're talking about and what teams are already circling, you're going to see this entire situation in a completely different light. DJ Moore came to Chicago with high expectations. He was the proven veteran receiver we desperately needed. A guy who had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with Carolina, who had shown he could be a legitimate number one receiver in this league, who was supposed to be the security blanket for our rookie quarterback. And for a while, that made perfect sense. Moore was our best receiver. He was the guy getting the targets. He was the player opposing defenses had to game plan around. But here's what's happened this season that's changed everything. Odunze has emerged as something special. The rookie out of Washington has become Caleb Williams' favorite target. He's making plays that Moore isn't making. He's showing up in critical moments. He's demonstrating that rare combination of size, speed, and route running ability that makes him a true number one receiver. And when you have that kind of emergence from a young player, it forces you to reevaluate everything about your offensive structure. Ben Johnson didn't come to Chicago to run the same old offense. He came here to revolutionize how we attack defenses, to maximize Caleb Williams' talents, to build something dynamic and explosive. And part of that vision involves having the right pieces in the right places. When Johnson looks at this receiving corps, when he evaluates who fits his system best, who gives Caleb the best chance to succeed, the answer increasingly seems to be Odunze as the number one, not DJ Moore. Now, this isn't about Moore being a bad player. He's not. He's talented, he's experienced, he's got skills that most receivers in this league would love to have. But there are concerns that have emerged this season, mental errors that have cost us in critical situations, moments where he hasn't been on the same page with Caleb, instances where his production hasn't justified his role in the offense. And when you're trying to build a championship team, when you're trying to maximize a young quarterback's development, you can't afford to have players who aren't fully locked in, who aren't executing at the highest level consistently. That's where this gets really interesting. According to sources, DJ Moore is being listed as a top trade candidate for this upcoming offseason. Not because the Bears don't value him, but because the coaching staff, is considering whether moving on from him opens up better opportunities for this offense, whether trading Moore allows them to address other needs, to bring in different pieces, to restructure the receiving corps in a way that better fits what Johnson wants to do. Moore turns 29 next year. That's not old for a receiver, but it's also not young. He's entering the phase of his career where production typically starts to decline, where speed diminishes slightly, where recovery from injuries takes longer. And when you're evaluating whether to keep a player who's making significant money, who's not your number one option anymore, who might fetch decent draft capital in a trade, the calculus changes. You start thinking about maximizing value while you still can. You start considering whether the resources tied up in that player could be better used elsewhere. The Bears originally selected Moore as a first-round pick when they traded for him. That investment was supposed to pay off with years of elite production. But if the production isn't matching the investment, if the fit isn't ideal, then holding on to a player just because of what you gave up for him is the sunk cost fallacy. You have to make decisions based on where you are now, not where you thought you'd be when you made the trade. And right now, the Bears are in a position where they have to honestly evaluate whether DJ Moore is part of the long-term solution or whether moving him creates better opportunities for this franchise. So let's talk about where Moore could potentially land if the Bears do decide to trade him. Because there are teams out there that could absolutely use a receiver with his skill set, teams that would view him as an upgrade, teams that might be willing to give up draft capital to acquire him. The Kansas City Chiefs are an interesting possibility. Now, I know they're struggling right now. They're not the dominant force they've been in recent years. Patrick Mahomes isn't playing at his MVP level. The offense has looked stagnant at times, but that's exactly why they might be interested in Moore. They need to add weapons around Mahomes. Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are solid, but they need another receiver who can create separation, who can make plays in critical moments. Moore would give Kansas City that veteran presence, that proven production, that ability to stretch the field and create opportunities for others. It's not a perfect fit, but it's a logical one for a team that's desperate to recapture its championship form. Then you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are potentially facing a complete offensive rebuild depending on what happens with their coaching staff and quarterback situation. Mike Tomlin's future is uncertain. Aaron Rodgers might be retiring. They've got DK Metcalf as their number one receiver, but they've never found a true complement to him. Adam Thielen is retiring this offseason, which leaves a massive void in their receiving core. Moore could step into Pittsburgh and immediately be their number two receiver, giving them a legitimate 1-2 punch that could help whoever their next quarterback is. The Steelers have always valued veteran receivers who can mentor younger players, who bring professionalism and production. Moore fits that profile perfectly. And then there's Tampa Bay, which might be the most intriguing destination of all. The Buccaneers' receiving situation is in flux. Mike Evans is on the verge of retirement. Chris Godwin has dealt with too many injuries. They've got Emeka Egbuka, who's shown promise, but they need another established receiver to stabilize that position group. Tampa Bay has always been aggressive in acquiring veteran talent, and Moore would give them exactly what they need. A reliable target who can produce immediately, who doesn't need time to develop, who can step in and contribute from day one. The fit makes sense both from a football perspective and from a team-building philosophy. So here's where we are as Bears fans. We're watching a phenomenal season unfold. We're seeing Caleb Williams develop into a star. We're seeing Rome Odunze emerge as a true number one receiver. And we're potentially watching DJ Moore's time in Chicago come to an end. That's not an easy thing to process. Moore has been a good player for us. He's made big plays. He's been professional. But if the coaching staff believes that moving on from him is the best decision for this team's future, if they think the resources tied up in Moore could be better allocated elsewhere, then we have to trust that evaluation. We have to believe that Ben Johnson knows what he's doing, that he has a vision for this offense, and that vision might not include DJ Moore as a central piece. The reality is that building a championship team requires making tough decisions. It requires being honest about what's working and what isn't. It requires having the courage to move on from players when the fit isn't right, even if those players are talented, even if they're well-liked, even if they've contributed in the past. The Bears are finally in a position where they can be strategic, where they can think long-term, where they can make moves that maximize Caleb Williams' development and this team's championship window. If trading DJ Moore is part of that strategy, if it allows us to address other needs, if it creates cap space or brings back draft capital that can be used to build a more complete roster, then it's a move worth considering. Now, I want to be clear about something. This isn't confirmed yet. Moore hasn't been traded, the offseason hasn't even started. But the fact that he's being discussed as a top trade candidate tells you everything you need to know about how the organization views his future here. It tells you that they're at least open to the possibility. It tells you that they're evaluating all options. And as fans, we need to be prepared for that possibility. We need to understand that the roster we see today might look very different next season. We need to accept that change is part of building something special. Looking at this objectively, if the Bears do trade Moore, they're betting on Odunze being the real deal. They're betting that he can handle being the number one receiver, that he can be the guy Caleb Williams leans on in critical moments, that he can produce at a high level for years to come. And based on what we've seen this season, that's not a bad bet. Odunze has shown everything you want to see from a young receiver. He's got the physical tools. He's got the work ethic. He's got the football IQ. He's got the connection with Caleb that you can't teach. If he continues developing at this rate, he's going to be one of the best receivers in this league. And if that's the case, then maybe DJ Moore is expendable. Maybe the Bears can afford to move on from him because they've already found their answer at that position. That's the kind of decision that separates good organizations from great ones. Great organizations aren't afraid to make bold moves when they identify better options. They don't hold on to players out of sentimentality or because of past investments. They make cold, calculated decisions based on what gives them the best chance to win championships. And if the evaluation is that trading DJ Moore makes the Chicago Bears a better team, then that's the move they need to make. Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I genuinely want to know where Bears Nation stands on this. This is our team, this is our future, and we all have a voice in these conversations. If you found this breakdown valuable, if it gave you a different perspective on our receiving situation, smash that like button. If you want to stay updated on every Bears development, every trade possibility, and every critical piece of analysis as we head into the offseason, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Share this video with every Bears fan you know because this conversation is just getting started. Until next time, Bear Down, and let's trust that this organization is building something special.